Hello and welcome to Dumi's Daily Grind. My name is Dumi and thank you so much for joining me today. I have created this channel to share my life experiences. Inspirations are found from others, lessons I have learned, and things I have been taught throughout various periods of my life, especially the ones related to sobriety, finding serenity, and mental health issues. So, I haven't been around for a very long time, and I was actually busy with studies, looking after my family, and all of those responsibilities that come into play. I haven't had time to make a video. So, yesterday I made a video regarding selfishness, self centeredness, and self seeking. And the reason why I wanted to make that video is because we have been discussing it quite a lot with a few people that I deal with on a daily basis. And we are going to do a full on episode discussing these concepts, discussing these behaviors, and discussing the solutions around how to deal with life on life's terms without being selfish, self-centered, and just putting our own needs before anybody else's needs. Now, this year, being 2023, we are already in May. There's a couple of things that have happened in my life which are really important to me as an individual and are really important for me in this journey of staying sober and staying away from alcohol. But my journey doesn't only revolve around staying away from alcohol, staying away from drinking, staying away from getting drunk. My journey has a lot of other elements that I'm working with that I think are really, really important. Now, I've started a new book. I started reading a new book, and that book is called Falling Upwards, and it is by Richard Rohr. Oh my gosh. His point of view is absolutely amazing. The way he writes about the correlation between religion, spirituality, addiction, alcoholism, and just life in general, I find very interesting. I find it so interesting that I really need to speak about it. So I will be doing a book review on that book by Richard Rohr called Falling Upwards. If you haven't started reading it, I would suggest you read it. I have been trying to see how I can put into practice some of the statements that he's got in that book. But please remember, it is filled with so many nuggets. As human beings, we have really two sections of life, two halves of life. I think that's the way he says it. He says two halves of life. The first half of life is this life that we're living. So we get born, we get taught, we get born into a culture, into a tradition, into a way of living, which is taught to us by the ones who came before us. So we get those lessons from our parents, we get those lessons from church, we get those lessons from school, we get those lessons from our environment. And we strive through that first part of life without knowing our purpose, without knowing who we are, and without really understanding what our purpose really is. But as we go through this phase of our development, as he says, is we start to understand our purposes in life. We start to understand where it is that we fit in. And we start to understand on the material side of things what it is that we need to do, what it is that we need to do on a daily basis just to survive. So this half of our lives is a mere survival as a species, a mere survival. Learning, going to school, learning how the world works, learning how to make money, learning how to just live. And then he says there are some people who are blessed enough, or perhaps not so blessed enough, who get given a blueprint in life, and they're able to follow that blueprint to the T. That blueprint may be something like scripture from the Bible. There's people who live according to what the Bible says. They live according to this blueprint that their parents have given to them. And they can live life like that. Stay away from mistakes, stay away from accidents, stay away from making all of those bad life choices, because they've got a blueprint, right? So they will live their first part of life with this blueprint that they will be using on a daily basis. Then you find the other ones who are born into wealth. Born into wealth, they have got absolutely no requirement for the suffering of earning money, the suffering of not having food, the suffering of not having clothing, that suffering of being able to get whatever it is that they require in life without any effort. And they go through this half of their lives following this blueprint, and suffering is not really a part of their growing up. Then he goes on to say that there is the second part of life that we live. The second part of life, with some people, it happens earlier than with others. And this second part of life is a part of life that deals with spirituality, that deals with the innermost self. It deals with wisdom. We learn from all the mistakes that we have made during our first part of life. And we get to a point where it is no longer about the material. It is no longer about how people view us. It is no longer about satisfying what society and community says we should be, our parents, what they want us to be. We have gone through all of that, and we have experienced it. We have suffered through it. We have gone through the lessons that we need to be able to grow into the second part of life. Now, what's interesting here, in the chapter that I'm at, he mentions that the ones who follow the blueprint in the first part of their lives may find themselves not getting to the second part of life. And the reason behind that, if I understand his explanation of this, is that you need to experience suffering. You need to experience difficulties. You need to experience the realm of the world that we live in, so that we can get to the second part of our lives with the understanding, with the proper understanding and appreciation of why we are here as flesh and blood and human beings, requiring food, requiring water, requiring air to survive, and fitting into a society. Now, my understanding of this and what he says in this book is that those who grow up with the blueprint and those who are able to follow the blueprint that has been handed to them through the experiences of others may find themselves dying without having had to experience the second part of life. And I need to get into that second part of life, because with me, if I take it from my personal point of view as an example, as a person who's gone through life with so many difficulties, making so many mistakes, bumping into walls, not being sure who I am, trying to find myself, finding that this part of my life has not really worked out, learning from the lesson, changing it up a little bit, learning something new, and being able to forgive myself and move forward and grow. I have got the opportunity right now to enter into the second part of my life. And I find this book so fascinating because the second part of life that he speaks about can only be gotten by those who have suffered. He calls it the gift of suffering, the blessing of suffering, which will allow us to grow into a more serene and peaceful existence where we are able to accept things for what they are. We are able to accept life for what it is and accept that we are only on this journey on earth, only to meet up again with the power that is greater than ourselves. And that one is God. So I have been part of this workshop. I was invited into this workshop one Saturday morning. And the topic in this workshop revolved around the suffering and the purpose of the suffering, which ended up with us speaking about the differences between selfishness, self-centeredness, and self-seeking. And it's all sort of like intertwined, because my selfishness has caused suffering. My clinging has caused suffering. Now, I clinged to material things. I clinged to my personal values and beliefs. I clinged to all of these things that I truly believed made me who I am today. And I clung to all of these things that at the end of the day cause suffering. How do these things cause suffering in my life, in my first half of life? I put myself under pressure with work. I worked as hard as I possibly could. I knew that if I work hard, I will make more money. If I make more money, I'll be able to buy the material things that I feel, or the world has told me that signs and symbols of my success in life. I clung to them. I bought property, I bought cars. I have worked myself to the bone to be able to ensure that my children are able to go to school, they are able to dress up correctly, we have got power, we've got water, by clinging to these so-called worldly successes. It was necessary for me. It wasn't for nil. It wasn't for naught. Because now I get to understand that through that suffering, through that having to go to work and make my boss happy and make my boss money and be able to drive all over the country looking for new clients, closing all of those deals that I was able to close, and being able to create this sort of comfort with wealth in mind, caused me suffering. And that suffering showed itself up to me in the way that I consumed alcohol. So my consumption of alcohol was a sort of numbing of all of the stresses and all of the suffering that I was going through on a daily basis while I was trying to live life. So when I was trying to be somebody that the world says, this is who you have to be successful. And it caused pain. And that pain and that suffering had to be numbed somehow by me because I couldn't deal with it. So I found in alcohol what some people will find in food, some people will find in gambling, some people will find in sex addictions, some people will find in pornography, some people will find in all these sorts of things that help us cope with the current issues that we are facing. And it leads to addiction. And it's quite nice because in this book, he mentions the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, where he states that a lot could be learned from that. Because what happens there is then you take all of the suffering, you take all of these defense mechanisms, you take off all of these survival tactics, and you say, but is this really what is going to help me get through life? Is this the solution to these problems that I have of my own causing, of me following what the world has to say to me? This is how you succeed. Therefore, this is how you do things. So I found that book very interesting. I'm still reading it. I'll do a proper review of it, but I just find it so interesting that I just wanted to speak about it. If you haven't read it, please, I suggest that you read it. Read it with an open mind. Richard Rohr is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was, he came through priesthood through the Church of St. Francis or the Franciscans. I'm not sure what they're called. And I use the prayer of St. Francis on a regular basis just to humble myself and bring myself back down to earth, because the prayer of St. Francis is one of those prayers that remind me that I am not perfect. I can do the best that I can do. I can ask my higher power to say, this is my intention. Even if I'm not doing it correctly in the way that you would like me to do it, or in the way I think you would like me to do it, I understand that you understand that this is my capability at the moment. And it's so pertinent to my daily life. So what do I do on a daily basis? At 5 o'clock in the morning, I wake up, I meditate, I pray, and we do this in a group. So I've got a group of people. We've got a group of people. We all come together at 5:30 in the morning, and we meditate together. And then once a week, we get together, we reflect on what the benefits are of this meditation and this prayer that we do on a daily basis. And it makes such a big difference. It makes such a big difference because I have now built a relationship with a power that is greater than myself. And that power that is greater than myself is a power of my own understanding. So I don't go around telling people, this is God. This is how you're supposed to worship God. This is how you're supposed to do things. Oh, don't eat this. Don't run to this. Don't go there. Don't behave in this sort of manner. And the reason why that is very important is because everybody's experience is completely different. And everybody reaches a certain level of life that is suitable for them in their own journeys. We all are traveling through our own journeys. And even when we go to church, we go to church, we fellowship, we do all of these things together. But once church is over, it is you and God that have to reflect on your lessons, on your learnings, on what you are going to do better tomorrow. I said in one of my videos that this year one of my goals would be to grow by 2% every day. And actually, I got that from a book. I don't remember now which book I was reading. And he was stressing on the fact that instead of jumping leaps and bounds, a small little improvement that happens on a daily basis is more valuable than an utter complete change. I suppose that's why people who go through these television shows where they do a complete change to someone's place of living, to someone's look, they change it completely. They put them on diets. Within a few months, they've lost weight. They look good. They look like somebody different. Those people find it very difficult to live that life. And the reason why they find it very difficult to live that life is because it didn't happen gradually. They go back to their society. They look different. They feel different. They've got a different thing that they have been coached to do. And they go into reality and it's like, no, but this is not who I am. It needs to be a gradual change that happens in time. And we need to accept our mistakes. We need to accept our errors. We need to be able to look at them and learn those lessons, because a lesson learned today becomes something that you can teach to somebody tomorrow. And it becomes something that you overcome. Once it's overcome, you make room for more lessons. And life is just that. It's just lesson after lesson after lesson. And when we learn those lessons, we are then able to improve ourselves. One day at a time, we're able to improve ourselves. One step at a time, we're able to improve ourselves. And, another thing that I learned this year is, because we are all on our own journeys, I am not here to judge. I am not here to say, oh, look at that one. They're struggling with this thing or the other thing, or they don't have money, or they don't have this. Oh my gosh, look at that. No. These journeys are our own journeys, and we have got a choice to take the lessons, to learn them, so that we can move forward. So I'm looking forward to the second half of the book. I want to hear what the second part of life is before we get to our creator, our higher power, whoever you would like to call that person. So I am blessed and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to do another video, and I'm happy to do a video that is unscripted. Yeah, so please remember, I do have a podcast. You can find this on Apple Music. I think it's Apple Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and some other popular podcasts. You can support me if you're interested. I do have a Patreon. You can find it on www.patreon.com/Dumi's Daily Grind. The website is still up at www.dumisdailygrind.com, and I will ensure to bring more content, my thoughts, what it is that I'm learning in life. And I'm proud to say that a few days ago, I did 6 months. So it has been 6 months without any alcohol for me to try and have anxiety on what tomorrow has for me. The past has happened. I cannot go back and change it. I don't have powers to do that. So the most important day for me is today. So thank you so much for joining me. I will see you next time. Hopefully, it will be another unscripted learning that I have learned, and we can share it, and you can share it with me. I'm looking forward, so forward to doing that again. Thank you for listening. If you listen till the end, I really appreciate you. Have yourself a lovely day. Lots and lots of love. Mwah.